I like that Traven and Kyle always have their cameras on too. I appreciate that. It's good to see you guys. All right, welcome, welcome. Happy Monday, last Monday before finals, which is crazy. Hopefully your final schedule next week isn't too crazy. For us here, I mean, really, you just have to make sure you get this project done by the end of this week. I'll probably have a little finals week thing that you can do if you'd like. That'll wrap things up with your goals for this semester. Okay, so more info to come on that as we get a little bit closer to finals. Cool. What I want to do today is get you all those formulas and stuff into your Google Sheet so they're good to go. So that you can start, if you haven't started yet, you want to start your research. If you haven't come up with your question and categories and all that stuff, you want to make sure we get that done today. But looking at our list here, I think almost everybody, if not everybody, has that stuff figured out. But if I'm talking to you, let's stick around after I do this real short heads up as to how to get all your formulas in, and we'll figure that piece out. All right. So let me share my screen real quick. I'll show you what's going on. But open up your final project. Okay. Open up your final project Google Sheet. And if you don't have one yet, then make a new one. Make a new Google Sheet, and I will help you figure out how to get there. Okay. So I'm going to do a couple things. I am going to open up the write-up for the Google Sheets project so you can see it, but I'm also going to open up my example one, and I'll put them kind of side by side. Okay. All right. So dad and decisions, right? You've got your dad's folder. Final project for me is this one. Okay. And this was the nice template that a lot of you seem to like, that you use that as kind of a beginning, and then you just kind of filled in whatever your numbers are. I'm going to keep it unknown like this for now. Okay. Here's what I'm going to do. Let's do it like this. Let's exit that full screen. I'll pop this one off to the left. I'll put this one on the right. Okay, cool. So on your Google Sheets for your final project, right, you've got all this stuff, and column G is completely empty, right? Column H, column I, those should be empty. If you have something in any of these columns right now, you might want to just like either scoot it over to J, K, or L, or put it up here in like D1, E1, F1. We're not going to use any of those 6 up there, or even like really anything here A through F in row 2. So move some stuff around if you think you need it. But what I wanted to do with you guys right now is make sure that all of this stuff here at the bottom, and it's all right there, okay? It's all right there for you to walk yourselves through. Let me back out a little bit. I'll do this. That did not do it. I want to go this way. There we go. It's all sitting right here for you, okay? But I just wanted to walk you through it together, okay? So in your Google Sheet final project, okay, go into cell G4. So go to G4, which should be right next to your preference vector numbers, okay? Now, right now, your preference vector doesn't have to be there, okay? Or maybe it is, and maybe by the end of the week, it changes, right? Because maybe your question is, where am I going to go to lunch today? And how I feel today might be different than how I feel on Friday. Or, hey, where am I going to go to college? Hey, I might feel one way on Monday and a different way on Friday, right? So don't feel like you are stuck with whatever those numbers are for your preference vector, but make sure that you pick those numbers very specifically based on whatever your range is for that category. Okay, cool. So in G4, okay, so here you are, either double click your way in or click on G4 and come up to this formula box up here at the top, and we're just going to copy that right there exactly as it is. That's called a dot product. It's the sum of the squares of your numbers, okay? And this is the math that's happening behind the scenes. So I'm going to type exactly that, equals, parentheses, parentheses, 2 of them, okay? B4 times, right, which is the asterisk. So that's, for me, it's shift 8 times B4, close parentheses. So that those two multiply together, okay? And then plus C4 times C4. C4 times C4. And we don't need, the dollar sign to hold on to any of those categories just yet. We'll do that once we get to the next one. Okay, C4 times C4. Same thing for D. D4 times D4. Plus, remember, you're closing your parentheses around each one. Just make sure it looks exactly like this one. There's the sum of the squares, right? We're adding things together, so it's a sum. And then we're squaring each one while we're multiplying it by itself. And if you have it filled out right, you should have, like, you see how this parentheses is like kind of background with a little gray? You got that parentheses. It's also background with a little gray. That tells you you've closed it off exactly. Okay, and if you press enter, it should put a number in that spot. Now for me, I don't have any values yet, right? But if I did have 3, 6, 1, 8, and 10, let's say, oh, there we go. There's some number, right? And as your number changes, let's say category 3 goes from a 1 to a 4, okay, then that number is going to change, right? All of that stuff is going to change with it, okay? So whatever your number is, cool. And it should naturally shift with whatever you decide, okay? This right here, that result right there, okay, that's really, really important for us because that number is what we're gonna base all of your other choices by, okay? Every single choice is going to relate back to that spot right there, okay? And you can see that in number 2, the very, very end, G4, that's dollar signs in front of both because we don't want that to change. We're going to be adjusting our numbers according to that, okay? All right, so let's do it. So I'm gonna leave this preference vector in there, but who cares? Like as I go, I can change it to be whatever I want. Those numbers are gonna change. But if I go to G8, okay, which should be directly across from my very first choice. If you started your choices in 7, or 6, or 5, or 9, or 10, this is not going to work, okay? You want to make sure that whatever box you're in, whatever cell you're in, G8, which has got to be the cell that we're in, is directly across from your first choice. Because whatever we'll do, we're just going to drop that down, right? We're going to do all that formatting straight down, but we're just going to do it once, okay? So now what I can do is now in G8, I'm going to type exactly this right there. Okay, so I'm going to either double click my way in, and you can just kind of start typing in there, and you'll see it fills it right there as well. What I'll do, right, you can be up in this box, is type exactly that, equals, parentheses, okay, B8. And you can see it's highlighting that one because it cares about that one. And what we're going to do is we're going to multiply it by exactly what B4 is. So B4, like when we're in B4, right? When we went over to G4, we did B4 times B4. Well, now we're doing B8 times B4, and we're kind of comparing that distance, okay? So we're going to do B8 times $B, $4, so it holds on to that category, okay? Close parentheses. Then we'll do it for C and D and E and F, all the same thing. But remember those double parentheses here at the front, super, super crucial, because when we close it off at the end, you're going to see we're going to do a little dividing by G4. Okay, cool. So just one closed parentheses right there after the 4, all right, plus, and if you're looking and you want to keep track, just look up at the formula bar up here. Parentheses again, C8 times $C, $4, so it holds on to that spot as we drag it down, because otherwise it would go to like C5, C6, C7 as we dragged, and I want to always relate it back to whatever my preference vector number was for that first one. Cool, and then just keep going. For D, D8 times $D, $4. Oop, that's a time, sorry, $. So you want to make sure you're really typing these things in carefully. I just made a mistake, but I fixed it. E8 times $E, $4, plus F8 times, and careful with your times and your pluses, things are going to get messed up for sure. $F, $4. And then double close parentheses. okay? Because that will basically do exactly what we did in row 4, right, for G4. But instead of multiplying all of the numbers by themselves, we're going to take your preference vector numbers and multiply them by the vector rankings, right, your category rankings for whatever that first choice was, okay? Now, what I want to do to compare it to G4 is I have to divide, okay? So you want to do that division, but right next to your shift, at least on mine, right, is that slash button, right? That's going to be our division, $G, $4. And you see it highlighted, that one. As I did that, I press enter. Right now it's all 0 because I'm taking 0 and dividing by 142. But let's say my numbers in here worked out to be numbers like that. Okay, cool. Then I'm going to get some decimal, right? And that looks good. Okay, so whatever your choice was, right? Maybe my question is, what mask should I wear to school today, right? I'm getting close to having 30 choices at this one. Right, and the one that I have is my tie-dye one. So let's say that was choice number 1. Whatever, these are my results from my categories for that, right? Comfort, breathability, style, cleanliness, and size, whatever, right? And you can just come up with stuff just like that, whatever works, and then that's what we get. Okay, cool. So hopefully you have that typed into G8 looking just like that. Okay, again, we're just multiplying each part of your data with each part of your preference vector, then dividing by the preference vector itself. Okay. That absolute referencing that we're talking about right there, that's just the $, okay? Because now we can calculate all of that down, okay? So, so let's do it. Let's take G8 right there, okay? And let's bring that all the way, bring that all the way down to at least row 37. Okay, for me, 30 choices, if I'm doing this right, is number 8 through 37, like 1 through 10, 3 times, right? 8 through 37 should get that done. Okay, and this way, it's going to be a bunch of zeros. If you don't have any choices in there yet, that's all good. No worries. It's just there, so you're good to go. Cool. So remember, click on, just don't double click, just click on that. Go over to that little blue box in the corner, click, and drag it down. And you can go past, but there's no sense in going past the number of choices that you have. Click all the way down to at least row 37, and you can have more than 30 choices. I don't know if you remember, but I showed you a couple examples kind of when we first did this. Somebody had like 70 choices in there because she wanted to make sure she got 100 on the project, which she did. So that was awesome. Okay, cool. So that's number 2. Okay, that is number 2. Number 3 here, I'm going to give it a little space so we can see it, is to calculate this number's distance away from 1. Okay, because if we get this number to be close to 1, then we are really close to our preference vector. Look, if I made each of these numbers exactly the same as the preference vector, I get exactly 1 because I'm multiplying them by themselves and then dividing it by itself. All right, 10 divided by 10, 100 divided by 100, a million divided by a million, that's all just 1. And if I change it, so the 7 goes to a 6, well, it's still really, really close, right? Or if the 7 goes to an 8, it's still really, really close. But because I want distance from 1, I don't care about positive versus negative, like which one is above 1 by a little bit, or which one's below 1 by a little bit. So I just want the positive answer, right? If I'm 10 feet away from the board isn't negative 10 feet away from me, it's 10 feet away from me, right? And so what I want to make sure that I do here in column H is calculate that distance, but make sure that whatever the answer is positive. Okay, and so what I'm going to do is type in something that isn't super, super, super complicated, but I want to tell you about what's happening in case you're interested in the programming that's going on behind the scenes. Okay, we're going to use absolute value. Absolute value is just a way to make all of my numbers positive. But in order to do that, I have to let the cell know that, if it's bigger than 1, right, then keep it whatever that distance is. If it's less than 1, then make sure you do the opposite. Okay, so here we go. Here, number 3 on Google Sheets project, right? It's just whatever's in this box right here. We're going to type exactly that, and that equals ABS is absolute value. And you can see that comes up right there. Okay, absolute value is just making things positive. Okay, parentheses. Okay, here comes the programming. If, okay, you can tell Google Sheets to look for specific kinds of values. Okay, if, okay, and here it comes. So it's kind of another function. If, parentheses, if G8 is bigger than 0. We like that. Okay, if G8 is bigger than 0, then, so comma, that's kind of like a then statement. Let's take, so parentheses, let's take G8 and subtract 1. Comma, and then do 1 minus the absolute value of G8. Now, all right, so what the heck did we just do? Now, close parentheses, you can see which one it closes. I'll tell you about it in a second. Close parentheses is going to close this one. See that one's highlighted. Close parentheses again, it's going to close this one. Close parentheses again, and it finally closes that first one that we did. Okay, all right, back up a second. What is all that craziness? Why did we even have to specify if G8 was going to be bigger than 0? Okay, well, of course it's going to be bigger than 0, but we had to give it that setup so that when we did G8 minus 1, we're talking about its distance away from 0, right? And if G8 is bigger than 0, but less than 1, we just got a negative number, and we would want to make sure we took the absolute value of that. Okay, so we could do 1 minus the absolute value of G8. Okay, cool. So there we go. There's our setup. And that number right there, that's the number that I'm looking for. And what we're going to do, right? Now, why couldn't we just say, hey, let's find a number close to 1? What Google Sheets can do really easily is it can find the smallest number. Rather than the number closest to 1, we're going to find the number closest to 0. We're going to find the smallest number. So here's what's happening. G8 gives us your distance from your preference vector. Okay. What we really want with column H here is figuring out which one of these is the closest. Okay, and to do that, we have this column H that says, okay, look, I mean, really all it does is it just drops the 1, right? 1.049, blah, blah, blah. Okay, 0.049, blah, blah. Okay, cool. Let me go back real quick to you guys. Where's you guys? Questions? Is there anything that comes up? I know it's a little confusing. That's okay. Talk to me.
I mean, it's going to be more work than it's worth right now, but like we're in the G8 section, it gives me an error, and it says function divide parameter 2 cannot be 0.
Okay, so what I'll do is Aiden, just stick around for like 2 seconds right after, and you'll share your screen with me, and we can figure it out.
Sweet.
It's not as much work as you think. I just have to look at it. There's just probably something you typed in. That's all.
Yeah.
It might be just that you don't have any numbers in row 4 yet. Let's see. So if I go like that, right, I can't divide by 0.
I tried that, but it's still being weird.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll just stick around.
Very cool. All right. So hopefully your H8 looks like that one. Basically, all we're doing is we're subtracting 1 from this number, but then taking the absolute value of that. That's all we're doing to make things positive. Because look, now if I subtracted 1, I should have gotten like negative something, but now it's positive, which is cool. So let's copy that all the way down. So grab that blue box in that bottom right-hand corner and drag it down all the way next to the last 0 that you've got. Okay. Awesome. All right, now here's the part that I like the most. Here's the part that I just think is so cool, that we can let Google Sheets pop the answer up for us so that we don't have to go looking for the smallest number in this column. It'll give it to us anyway, okay? If you haven't done it yet, let's go to number 4, okay? Number 4 says, let's find the number that's closest to 1 by saying, okay, equals, there's a function called small that'll pick out the smallest number for you, okay? And we want it to look for the number that's between H8 and H37. This says go to 43. That's if we had 35 choices. So if you have more than 30 choices, you're going to have to change this last number. I'm just going to go to 37. So H8 colon H37. That'll say that's like H8 through H37. Okay, and you can see that it's highlighting all of my numbers there. Okay, and then comma closest to 1. Closest to 0. That should say closest to 0. Sorry, closest to 0. Obviously, we want the number closest to 0, and it's going to pick that one. Cool. Now, that would just pop up the answer, and if I did, watch this, 3, 5, 2, 7, 4, something really, really, really close. Oh, look, this number just changed to be this one because this number is closer to 1 than this one, right? But I don't want to have to go searching, as I have 30 choices and I've got a whole bunch of numbers all kind of randomly filled out. Well, not random, but they'll seem random once you look at the whole thing. I don't want to have to go looking for where this number is. What I want Google Sheets to do is to highlight this column. So I'm going to select this whole column. Okay, I'm going to select everything H8 through H38. That whole thing is selected. And I want it to highlight the cell that's equal to I8. Because, all right, so what we did in I8 was find the smallest one, right? Find the number closest to 0. Which is really finding what part of G is closest to 1. But if we find the one that's here that's closest to 0, I want it to kind of highlight that. So if I highlight all of column H8 through H whatever, at least for me for 37, okay, I want to do something called a conditional formatting rule, okay? So if you come up here to format, so you have to highlight that stuff first, okay? Highlight H8 through H37. You click on conditional formatting. Okay. Here's what we want to do. Format cells if, okay, so here's my range, H8 through H37. Format cells if it is, and look at all these conditional formattings we can do. If it's empty, if it's not empty, if it's got a certain thing in it, if it doesn't have a certain thing in it, if this text starts with that, if it ends with this, there's so many cool things we can do. The one we want is we want it to be equal to exactly whatever the value is right there at I8. And we're just going to put the dollar signs in there so it holds on to those no matter what. Okay? You get to pick the color that you want. Okay, so pick whatever color you'd like for it to pop up as. Okay, I'm going to go with this. What is that? Magenta. Nice. Okay. And if I save it and close it out, boom, it highlights that one. Right? And if I had made a category that was even closer, so like 1, 8, and 4, as soon as I press enter right now, look what happens. Boom, This number changes. This one gets highlighted because that one is closer to 1. That's the smallest number out of all of them. And so as you're going through all of these, if you've got, and I'll do it again, right? Let's see if I can click on conditional formatting. I'm just going to pick it. I got to highlight it again. Right? Select them all just like that. Right? Format, conditional formatting applies to this range. Is equal to, and you say equals $I, that's not a $1, $. And it should be good. We should have everything we need, okay? And so we really just did a few things, right? We filled out G4 so that we could get this formula in there, okay? We filled out H8, so we had this formula, and we kind of dragged that one down so it covered all of column G8. Then we did H8, which was the kind of the tricky, fancy thing that we did to subtract 1, but then take the absolute value of that. And then just in I8, we're not going to drag this one down, because what I8 does is it looks at everything from H8 through H37 and picks the one number that's the smallest. When we say smallest, I mean closest to 0. There you go. That's how it's done, okay? Your project, your final project is ready to go, okay? Now it's just up to you to do the research, okay? And if you are struggling with that, you just tell me and I can help you, right? I can help you figure out categories. I can help you figure out ranges. I can help you with any part of actually finding the research. Like, Rosie, I can only find 20 options. Can you help me with the rest? Absolutely, right? But you've got it. And that's what Wednesday is going to be for. So I want you to take today, I want you to take tomorrow, and do as much research as you can. Get this thing done. And then come to Wednesday, even if it's just to stop in and say hi and let me know how things are going. I'm just going to kind of check in with you guys on Wednesday live again. And that'll be the last time that we meet. Mandatory in a way, right? I'll have office hours. If you need to drop by during the final, if there's any last minute things that you need to figure out, I'll be here. I'll just be kind of grading stuff from second period. But if you need some time to work on some last minute things, and I'll also be there with that last thing that you could do for that last chance to bump things up based on your goal sheet. We'll go back to that. And so that's it. That's it. I'll probably have you fill out your goals one last time this Friday once your grades are pretty much set. So that we can do something with that. And I can give you one last grade for that too if you're looking for a little boost. But we're good. We're good to go. So stick around if you have questions, like Aiden, if you'll share your screen with me so I can see if I can fix the mistake that might be in there. If you guys are looking for help with coming up with a question or categories or ranking them or research or anything like that, I'm here. Just stick around and I'll work with you. Otherwise, I will see you Wednesday just for a quick check-in. I just want to be able to, I'll pop into each of your projects and if you want, and I'll look at some stuff and see how things are going. Cool.
Thank you, Rosie.
Thanks, guys. I will see you Wednesday.